Everyone said I was too ordinary for him. The maids whispered I didn't belong. His family called me a gold digger. But when the billionaire's empire crumbled and everyone abandoned him, I was the only one who stayed. What they discovered about me next changed everything forever. If you love stories about underdogs proving everyone wrong, you're going to love this one. Because what I'm about to tell you isn't just another rags to riches tale. It's about the moment when everyone who looked down on me realized they had been staring at a diamond while calling it dust. It's about karma so perfect, so complete, that even I couldn't have scripted it better. Hit that like button if you're ready for a wild ride, because trust me, you've never heard a story quite like this one. And don't forget to subscribe for more incredible true stories, because what happened to me proves that sometimes the universe has a sense of justice so poetic, it'll leave you speechless. My name is Luna Martinez, and this is the story of how I went from being the woman they said wasn't good enough to becoming the only truth a billionaire ever knew. But more than that, it's the story of how everyone who tried to tear us apart ended up begging at our feet. And the most beautiful part, I saw it all coming from the very beginning. So buckle up, because we're about to dive into a world of billion-dollar betrayals, hidden identities, and the kind of revenge that doesn't require lifting a finger. Sometimes, the best karma is simply letting people reveal who they really are, while you stay exactly who you've always been. And sometimes, the janitor cleaning your floors knows more about your business than you do. Are you ready to find out how the girl everyone underestimated became the woman everyone feared? Because this story is about to show you that the most dangerous person in any room isn't always the one with the most power. Sometimes, it's the one with the most to hide. It was 2:47 a.m. on a Tuesday when my life changed forever, and it started with the most embarrassing moment of my entire existence. I was on the 32nd floor of Sterling Tech Tower, pushing my cleaning cart down the marble hallway, when I saw him through the glass walls of the corner office. Vincent Sterling himself, sitting alone at his desk, surrounded by empty coffee cups and crumpled peppers. I'd been cleaning this building for 8 months, and I'd seen him maybe 3 times. He was always surrounded by suits, always rushing somewhere important, always looking like he lived in a different universe than the rest of us. But that night he looked human, tired, maybe even a little lost. I should have kept walking. Should have cleaned around his office like I always did. But something about the way he was staring at his computer screen, rubbing his temples like the weight of the world was pressing down on him, made me pause. The coffee pot in the break room was still warm, and before I could talk myself out of it, I poured a fresh cup and knocked softly on his door. "I thought you might need this," I said, holding up the coffee like a peace offering. He looked up, and for a moment I saw something flicker across his face. Surprise, maybe, or gratitude. "That's actually really kind of you, thank you." That's when disaster struck. As I stepped forward to place the cup on his desk, my elbow caught the edge of his laptop. Coffee went everywhere, all over his keyboard, his papers, his expensive suit. I wanted to disappear into the floor. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I'm so incredibly sorry." I grabbed napkins from my cart, frantically trying to clean up the mess I'd made. "I'll pay for the laptop, Hey, it's okay," he said. And to my shock, he was actually smiling. "Really, it's fine. These things happen." But as I dabbed at his keyboard, I noticed something. His screen was frozen on a coding error that I recognized immediately. Without thinking, I pressed a few keys, ran a quick diagnostic, and fixed the bug that had probably been driving him crazy for hours. Vincent stared at the screen, then at me, then back at the screen. "How did you... do you code?" I felt my cheeks burn. "A little. I mean, it was just a simple syntax error in your database query." "A simple syntax error," he repeated slowly, "that my entire development team has been trying to solve for 3 days." That was the moment everything changed. Not because of the coffee, or the spill, or even the coding fix. It was the way he looked at me afterward, like he was seeing me for the first time. like I wasn't just the janitor, like I was someone worth knowing. What started as accidental late-night encounters became something neither of us expected. Vincent began staying later at the office, timing his work sessions with my cleaning schedule. We'd talk while I worked, our conversations flowing from business strategies to childhood dreams, from technology innovations to family struggles. He told me about the loneliness of being surrounded by people who only wanted something from you. I told him about working 3 jobs to support my sick mother and put my little brother through college. He listened like my words mattered, like my life had value beyond the services I provided. 3 weeks later, he asked me to coffee. Not in the office at 3 a.m., but in daylight, in public, like a real date. I almost said no. The voice in my head screamed that this was crazy, that we lived in different worlds, that it would end in disaster. But something about the hopeful way he asked, the genuine nervousness in his voice made me say yes. That first coffee date turned into dinner. Dinner turned into long walks through the city. Vincent showed me art galleries I'd never had time to visit, and I showed him food trucks that served better meals than his 5-star restaurants. For 6 weeks, we existed in this beautiful bubble where none of the outside world mattered. Then reality crashed in like a tsunami. It started with his assistant, Isabella. She cornered me in the parking garage one evening, her smile as fake as her designer handbag. "Luna, isn't it? I think we need to have a little chat." She offered me $50,000 to disappear from Vincent's life. When I refused, her mask slipped completely. "You have no idea what you're dealing with," she hissed. "This isn't some fairy tale. You're embarrassing him, and you're too stupid to see it." Next came his mother, Vivian Sterling. She invited me to lunch at the most expensive restaurant in the city, then spent 2 hours explaining in polite, vicious terms why I was completely unsuitable for her son. "Vincent has responsibilities," she said, dabbing her lips with a cloth napkin that probably cost more than my monthly rent. "He needs someone who can move in our circles, someone who understands our world. You're a sweet girl, but you're not appropriate." The media discovered us a week later. Photographers followed us everywhere. Headlines screamed about the billionaire and the janitor. Social media exploded with memes and cruel jokes. Strangers online dissected my appearance, my background, my worth as a human being. But the worst part wasn't the public humiliation. It was watching Vincent's business partner Derek corner him in meetings, watching the board members whisper and point, watching his own world turn against him because of me. Every person in his life seemed to have an opinion about our relationship, and none of those opinions were kind. I started to wonder if maybe they were right. Maybe I really didn't belong in his world. The breaking point came on a rainy Thursday morning. I was leaving my apartment when I overheard 2 of my neighbors talking about the latest tabloid story. "She's obviously just after his money," one said. "Poor guy doesn't even realize he's being used." Their words hit me like a physical blow. I made a decision that nearly destroyed everything. That night I tried to break up with Vincent. "This isn't working," I told him, my voice shaking. "Your family is right. We're from different worlds, and I'm just making your life harder." Vincent's response shocked me. He got down on one knee, right there in my tiny living room, pulled out a ring I later learned cost more than most people's houses, and said, "Then let's make it official. Marry me, Luna. I don't care what anyone else thinks." I said yes through my tears, but I knew we'd just declared war on his entire world. The engagement announcement sent shockwaves through the Sterling Empire. Vincent's mother called it social suicide. The board of directors held an emergency meeting. Derek threatened to pull his investment partnerships. Isabella leaked stories to the press about Vincent's mental breakdown and poor judgment. But Vincent stood firm. "If being with Luna means losing everything else, then I choose Luna," he announced at a press conference that made international headlines. The consequences were swift and brutal. His family cut off all financial support and removed him from family trusts worth hundreds of millions. Business partners began withdrawing from deals, citing concerns about leadership stability. The board voted him out as CEO of his own company in a hostile takeover orchestrated by Derek. Within 6 months, Vincent went from being worth $3 billion to being essentially bankrupt. We had to sell his penthouse, his cars, his art collection, everything. The same people who used to fight for his attention suddenly couldn't return his phone calls. Former friends crossed the street to avoid us. Charity boards removed him from guest lists. The invitations stopped coming. We moved into my small apartment, and I watched this powerful, confident man I'd fallen in love with crumble under the weight of losing everything he'd worked for. Some nights, I'd find him staring at the wall, wondering if he'd made the biggest mistake of his life. Everyone who had once worshipped Vincent Sterling now acted like he was contagious. But what they didn't know was that their rejection was about to become their biggest regret. Vincent hit rock bottom 6 months after losing everything. He'd spend entire days in bed, staring at the ceiling of my cramped apartment, questioning every decision he'd made. "Maybe they were right," he'd whisper. "Maybe I destroyed my life for nothing." But while Vincent was drowning in despair, I was busy, very busy. He noticed the late-night phone calls first. I'd slip into the bathroom or step onto the fire escape, speaking in hushed tones to people he didn't recognize. When he asked, I'd brush it off. "Just job hunting," I'd say, which wasn't entirely a lie. Then came the laptop sessions. After Vincent fell asleep, I'd pull out my old computer and work until dawn, coding with an intensity that would have impressed his former development team. When he'd wake up and find me surrounded by energy drink cans and technical diagrams, I'd quickly close everything and smile innocently. The truth was, I had been living a lie for years, not about loving Vincent. That was the only real thing in my carefully constructed facade. But everything else, my background, my education, my capabilities, all carefully hidden. The night everything changed, Vincent found me on a video call with executives from Apple, Google, and Microsoft, all at the same time, all bidding against each other for something I'd created. "Luna," he said, standing in the doorway like he'd seen a ghost. "What's going on?" I ended the call and turned to face the man I'd been protecting from the truth. "Vincent, we need to talk." I told him everything. How I'd graduated from MIT at 19 with dual degrees in computer science and artificial intelligence. How I'd developed revolutionary AI software that could predict market trends with 99.7% accuracy. How I'd been betrayed by business partners before and learned to hide my genius behind minimum wage jobs to avoid attention. How I'd been documenting every move Derek and the board made against him, using my technology to expose their illegal market manipulations and insider trading, and how in exactly 48 hours, I was about to become the youngest female tech billionaire in history. Vincent stared at me like I'd just told him I was from another planet. You've had this the whole time? I fell in love with you when I had nothing to gain and everything to lose," I said softly. "That's how you know it's real." The software launch happened on a Tuesday morning, and by lunch, the entire tech world had turned upside down. My AI system, which I'd named Truth, made headlines across every major news outlet. CNN called it the biggest technological breakthrough since the internet. Forbes valued it at $12 billion on day one. But the real show began when the phone calls started. Derek was first. The same man who'd orchestrated Vincent's downfall was suddenly stammering through voicemails, begging for a meeting. "Luna, we should discuss partnership opportunities. I always believed in Vincent's judgment, you know." The board members who'd voted Vincent out began calling next, each one more desperate than the last. They'd just realized that the unsuitable janitor they'd mocked was now worth more than their entire company. Isabella tried a defiant approach. She showed up at our apartment with flowers and a fake smile, claiming she'd always supported our relationship. I was just trying to protect Vincent from other people's negativity. She lied through her teeth. But the most satisfying call came from Vivian Sterling herself. Vincent's mother, who'd spent months calling me inappropriate and embarrassing, was suddenly inviting us to family dinner. "I always saw your potential, dear," she cooed over the phone. "I was simply testing your resilience." The media that had crucified us was now writing puff pieces about our inspiring love story. The same magazines that had called me a gold digger were suddenly featuring me on their covers as tech's newest visionary. Within a week, every major tech company was offering me deals worth hundreds of millions. But I had a better idea. I offered Vincent something his former board, his backstabbing partner, and his fair-weather friends could never give him: a genuine partnership. "How would you feel about being co-CEO of Truth Technologies?" I asked him over breakfast in our tiny apartment. His eyes filled with tears, not from gratitude, but from the realization that while everyone else had abandoned him when he had nothing, I'd been planning to give him everything. "You planned this," he whispered. "You could have revealed who you were at any time and avoided all the pain." "But then I wouldn't have known who really loved you," I replied, "and who just loved your money." The people who'd betrayed us were about to learn that karma doesn't just knock on your door. Sometimes it buys the whole building. 6 months later, Vincent and I stood in the boardroom of Truth Technologies, our company now valued at $28 billion. The same room where Derek had once humiliated him was now hosting our IPO celebration. The irony was delicious. We got married on a private beach in Malibu. But here's the twist: we invited everyone: his family, the former board members, Derek, Isabella, even the journalists who'd written cruel articles about us. Not because we forgave them, but because we wanted them to witness what they'd almost destroyed. Vivian Sterling sat in the front row, desperately trying to play the loving mother-in-law. Derek gave a toast about always believing in us, while his own company teetered on the edge of bankruptcy. Isabella brought a wedding gift worth more than her annual salary, hoping to secure a job recommendation. But the most beautiful moment came during our vows. Vincent looked into my eyes and said, "You loved me when I had nothing, believed in me when no one else would, and stayed when everyone else ran. You didn't just save my life. You showed me what truth really looks like." The people who'd once called me unsuitable were now fighting for our attention. But Vincent and I had built something they could never touch: a partnership based on genuine love and mutual respect. We kept our promises to those who'd stood by us. Vincent's loyal secretary, who'd refused to participate in the boardroom coup, became our chief operations officer. The security guard who'd always treated me with kindness got a full scholarship for his daughter's college education. As for the others, Derek's company collapsed within a year. Isabella was blacklisted from executive positions after word spread about her attempted bribes and manipulations. The board members who'd betrayed Vincent found themselves frozen out of the tech industry's most lucrative deals. But Vincent and we built an empire based on something they'd never understand: the power of choosing love over approval, truth over convenience, and loyalty over opportunity. Today, when young entrepreneurs ask me for advice, I tell them this: the people who believe in you when you have nothing are the only ones worth having when you have everything. And sometimes, the person everyone calls the wrong choice turns out to be the only right answer you'll ever need. That janitor they said wasn't good enough, she just changed the world. And that's my story. The story of how everyone who said I wasn't enough ended up begging for scraps from my table. How the billionaire who lost everything for love gained something worth far more than money. He gained the truth. But here's what I want you to remember from all of this: your worth was never determined by other people's opinions. Those voices telling you that you're not smart enough, not good enough, not worthy enough, they're usually coming from people who are threatened by what you might become. Vincent could have listened to his family, his board, his so-called friends. He could have chosen their approval over our love. But he didn't, and that choice saved both of us. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is trust your own heart when everyone else is telling you you're wrong. I spent years hiding who I really was because I'd been betrayed before, because I thought staying small would keep me safe. But love, real love, doesn't ask you to diminish yourself. It asks you to be brave enough to show up as exactly who you are. The people who tried to destroy us thought they knew the whole story, but they were only seeing the first chapter. They judged the cover without reading the book. And that's their loss, because they missed out on being part of something extraordinary. Derek lost his empire because he chose greed over loyalty. Isabella lost her career because she chose manipulation over authenticity. Vivian nearly lost her son because she chose status over love. Their karma wasn't something I created. It was something they earned through their own choices. But you get to choose differently. You get to be the person who believes in others when they have nothing. You get to be the one who sees potential where others see problems. You get to write a story where love wins, where truth matters, and where the underdog doesn't just survive, they thrive. If this story inspired you to believe in your own worth, smash that like button and share it with someone who needs to hear that they're enough exactly as they are. Subscribe for more incredible stories of people who refuse to let others define their value. And remember, the next time someone tells you that you're not the right choice, maybe they're just not the right person to make that decision. Your story is still being written. Make it count.